Thank you very much. I would like you to give the same warm welcome to our first speaker. He's Michiel, and he is here all the way from Berlin to tell you his passion about infinity.
Thank you. Thank you. When I was a little boy, I must have been 13 years old, and I had a fascinating dream that I will never forget. I dreamt that I stood in front of infinity. And you know what happens if you stand in front of a skyscraper? You look up, but you feel dizzy. I felt extremely dizzy because my brain just couldn't comprehend the mere size of the thing. But in my dream I told myself I have to keep on looking at it, keep on stretching my imagination, and eventually I will understand how big it is. But every time I thought I understood it, it turned out to be even bigger, and I felt dizzier than before. Much later I decided to study mathematics, and I'm now a mathematician, and I learned that my dream was actually not that far off. Infinity is, in a sense, always bigger than whatever you think it is. But it is possible to imagine infinity. And to me, this is something very special. It's like, almost like for us mortal humans, it is possible to catch a glimpse of the divine, so to speak. But we have to let go of our intuition if we want to imagine infinity. Because our intuition is based on the world around us, in the world we live in, the physical world. And this world is essentially finite. So we have to let go of our intuition. Today I want to look at three central questions. First of all, what is infinity? Second of all, how big is infinity? And third, how many infinities are there? Now, as I spoke of intuition, I thought it would be nice to see what you think. So, what do you think? How many infinities are there? And just to help you a bit, let me tell you what some great thinkers in the history of mankind thought. Just to name a few. Aristotle thought there are two. According to an ancient Indian text, I can never pronounce the name, there were 7. Well, at least they had 9 different numbers, and it's not so clear which one of them are infinite, but they think probably they meant 7 types of infinities. And René Descartes thought there's only one infinity, and he would identify this infinity with God. So, what do you think? Is there no infinity, one, more than one, or infinity? Who of you thinks there's no infinity? Let me see some hands. Okay. Some hands, okay, interesting, interesting. So to you I can say, I cannot prove that you're wrong. Mathematicians, you know? No, but really, mathematics is all based on assumptions. And I have to make a few assumptions in order to say something. And I try to convince you today that these assumptions are somehow natural. But of course, if you don't want to accept these, then I can't say anything. Okay? So who of you thinks that there's only one infinity? Interesting. Very spiritual people, I think. Who thinks more than one? Lots more. And who thinks infinity? Lots more. Interesting. We have a diverse public. Okay. Okay. Of course, I'm not going to give you the answer right away, because that would kind of spoil the rest of my talk, right? But I can tell you that the right answer is not in the list. The right answer is not in the list. Okay, let's do some math. This is the point where it really starts to get fun. Most of what I will talk about is the work of Georg Cantor, German mathematician. This guy was really a genius. He has single-handedly unrevealed most of the mysteries about infinity that had been puzzling mankind for thousands of years. This guy is really a genius. So let's first think about what infinity really is. And now we're moving somewhere in a gray area between philosophy and mathematics. What is infinity? So whatever it is, we want it to be big, right? Very big. So it should be something like a number, but not like a number as we know it, but something like an infinite number. Okay? So that's our quest. We want to think about infinity as if it were some number. But immediately we touch upon a very deep philosophical question. What is a number? Now I think a very, very fundamental, profound answer to that is a number is a property of a set. What the heck? So let me explain what I mean by that. Have a look at these dots. Number of dots on the screen, okay? I can first make a set, and then count the number of dots in this set. 7, okay? I counted them before. So in a sense, 7 is the size of this set. So the size or the number is a property of this set. That's the idea. A number is a property of the set. And you might think, why do I need a set for this? I could also have done it without a set and maybe just counted all the points. But then you're counting all the points on the screen, which is also a set. Okay? Okay. So a number is a property of a set. And if we want infinite numbers to exist, then apparently that should be the size of an infinite set, right? But is there such a thing as an infinite set? So this is what I meant before. This is something that we cannot say. I cannot prove whether there exists such a thing as an infinite set. We have to assume this if we want to say something about infinity. But if infinity exists, then infinite sets should exist. So here's assumption number 1. Infinite sets exist. Okay. So let us assume that for a while. I hope you're still with me, okay? Good. So now that we have such an infinite set, we want to look at the size of that thing, and that would give us an infinite number, right? But how do you count an infinite set? That's now the question. How do you count an infinite set? It turns out that this is not really the right question to ask. A much better question to ask is, when are two sets equal in size? And this is something that we can really say. When are two sets equal in size? And by now you think, what is this crazy talk about sets and trying to define what a number is? We all know what a number is, right? And if I have two sets and I want to determine if they're equal in size, I just count the number of elements here and I count the number of elements here. And if they are the same, then the sets are the same. But that's cheating, because we don't know how to count infinite sets. However, there's a workaround. I think it's really genius. The workaround is two sets are equal in size if all elements can be paired together. Two sets are equal in size if all elements can be paired together. Let me explain what I mean by that. So before I go to the next slide, I want to ask you to try not to count, okay? Maybe I shouldn't have said that. So here's a hotel with a number of rooms, and there are a certain number of guests. Don't count them. Now I claim that if I can pair everything together, then the numbers are the same. For example, like this. If I can assign exactly one guest to one room without having extra rooms or extra guests, then the number should be the same. And we can do this without counting them, right? And this is really a very essential concept if we want to understand infinity. Two sets are equal in size if the elements can be paired together. Because this concept we can extend to infinite sets. This is really essential. keep in mind that it doesn't really matter how we pair them. For example, we could also do it like this. Doesn't matter. It still shows that the numbers are the same, right? So keep that in mind. We can always do reorganizations. So, by now I see many puzzled faces because what the heck am I doing, right? What is this funny business, this philosophical, mathematical stuff? Well, this is really what we need in order to say something about infinity. Because now we can construct an infinite number. For example, we look at the set of natural numbers. So that's all the possible numbers that you can think of, 1, 2, 3, 1,000, million, everything. We can put them together in a set. That's an infinite set, but we are allowed to do that by assumption number 1. Hey, we have an infinite set. Then I just look at the size of that set, and I've constructed an infinite number. Let's just give that thing a name, and that should be an infinite number, right? Well, this thing already has a name. It's a very funny symbol. It's called Aleph 0. This is the name of the size of this set. Aleph 0 is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Kind of adds to the mystery, doesn't it? So we only needed assumption number 1 in order to create an infinite number. And now we can use assumption number 2 to play around with it and to see whether other sets are also equal in size. And we can learn something about infinity. It's amazing, isn't it? I love this stuff. So now let's get back to our hotel, right? But now it's not a normal hotel like before. It's a hotel with an infinite number of rooms. Huh? Try to stretch your imagination a bit. Actually, Aleph 0, the number of rooms in this hotel is Aleph 0. And let's say that the hotel is full. So there are now Aleph 0 rooms and Aleph 0 guests. Okay, are you still with me? Good. Now in the evening, a new guest arrives. There he is. And we have Aleph 0 plus 1 guest. And a new guest also wants to stay in the hotel. And now there's a problem because the hotel's full, right? But this is where your intuition starts messing with you. Because when we say full, we think about finite numbers. Maybe it does fit if we have an infinite hotel. Okay, second guess, maybe we can put them somewhere in the end, right? But there is no end. It's infinite. There is no end. So maybe we can put them somewhere in between or in the beginning, but it's full. But remember that we were allowed to do reorganizations, right? So what if we just ask all guests to move up 1 room, like this? That is certainly possible. They have to do it simultaneously, all together. But if they all move up 1 room, then room number 1 is free. So no problem. A full hotel is not full in the infinite world. You see? You may not realize it, but I've just given you a rigorous mathematical proof that Aleph 0 plus 1 is Aleph 0. This is real hardcore mathematics here. Huh? Okay, let's push this on a bit. The following day, all the guests are still there, but now a bus arrives, like this. But of course, it's not a normal bus. It's an infinite bus with an infinite number of guests. Okay? So there were already Aleph 0 guests in the hotel. Now there are Aleph 0 guests extra, so we have Aleph 0 rooms and 2 times Aleph 0 guests. Does it fit? Who thinks that it fits? Ah, very smart, very smart. Okay, so we do a reorganization again. We ask all the guests in the hotel to move. And what if we ask everybody to move to the even numbers? So everybody moves to twice his own hotel room. Okay? Guest number 1 goes to 2, 2 to 4, 3 to 6, etc. Like this. Tack. we can do that. It's just reorganization. And now there's plenty of room for the new guest. No problem. So that proves, indeed, as many of you already thought, that 2 times Aleph 0 is Aleph 0. It's mind-blowing, isn't it? Okay, the next day the hotel is empty, which is bad for the hotel owner, of course, especially because he probably needs to pay an infinite amount of rent. But luckily, new guests arrive. Huh? Of course, you see where this is going. But it's going to be a lot of guests. At first, there are 2 guests. Not so much. But then 2 times 2. And the guests keep on doubling. 2 times 2 times 2. And they keep on doubling up until infinity. So that's 2 to the power Aleph 0. 2 to the power Aleph 0. Who thinks that this will fit? Okay. So the right question is, it doesn't. It's too much. It doesn't. I'm not going to give the proof for that. It's a very nice proof, but it would take me 5 minutes extra, and I don't have that. So it turns out that 2 to the power Aleph 0 is always bigger than Aleph 0. So that already means that we have at least 2 different types of infinity. Huh? Okay. So I think I showed you a number of things, how you can think about infinity, and this can be very counterintuitive, right? Let me tell you some even more weird effects. Some things that I'm not going to prove, because that's really hard work. So first of all, 2 to the power Aleph 0 is bigger than Aleph 0, but how big is it exactly? This is a very, very important question, because in a sense this is the question, how many points there are on a line? This is a very important question. How big is it exactly? The right answer, I was really shocked by this. The right answer is, it's undecidable. It's undecidable. I was really shocked by this. This kind of means that there is no answer. There is no answer to this question. It is proven that it cannot be proven nor disproven. It's mind-blowing, incredible. So actually, Mr. Cantor, of which I spoke before, proved something more general than this. This is even true for any infinite number. So if x is an infinite number, then 2 to the power x is always bigger. Always. So that means that if you give me an infinite number, I can always construct something bigger. So in a sense, there are always bigger infinities. Always bigger. As big as you want. So let's come back to the question that I posed you in the beginning. Right now, you would be inclined to think that there are an infinite number of infinities, right? But in order to say something like that, we have to take all possible infinities, group them into one very big infinite set, and try to determine the size of that thing. That would tell us how many infinities there are, right? It turns out that this is impossible. The set of all infinities does not exist. This was proven by Bertrand Russell. The set of all infinities does not exist. So you can't even say that there are an infinite number of infinities. There are just so much that you can't put them in a set. So in a sense, the right answer to the question was, if you're willing to accept the assumptions, there are more than infinite infinities. Ah. It's amazing, isn't it? Okay, so what does this all tell us? What does this tell us about reality? Well, in a sense, it doesn't tell us much about the physical world, as I told you, because our physical world is essentially finite. But we have seen that Descartes, and actually many philosophers and theologians after him, have identified infinity with God. So does that mean that there are more than an infinite number of gods? Some philosophers would say, that cannot be. God is simply the largest infinity. But we've seen that the largest infinity doesn't exist. So then that would prove mathematically that God does not exist. Hard mathematical proof, right? Now there are a few smart people who said, of course God does exist, but he is an infinity, but he has to be of a different type of infinity than the things that we've seen here. A non-mathematical infinity. Or maybe a mathematical infinity, but at least a different type. He thought this. Georg Cantor believed that God is a different infinity. He spent the rest of his life trying to determine what kind of infinity God is, to rigorously prove the existence of God by mathematical methods. I can tell you, he did not succeed. Instead, he ended up in a mental asylum. Really. So the question whether God exists remains an open question. Thank you.
So thank you, Michiel. So I know there must be some questions in the audience, so just raise your hand if you have a question. So I'll be the first. So this seemed pretty impressive and interesting to me. How come you guys are not acknowledged by a Nobel Prize?
So the thing is, there is no Nobel Prize in mathematics. There is no. Does anyone know why?
I heard an urban legend that Nobel's wife was having an affair with a mathematician.
Exactly. So the story goes that Nobel's wife had an affair with a mathematician. So yeah, that would be the Fields Medal. That's.
You ruined it for yourself.
I know.
Are there any questions in the audience for Michiel?
Yeah, I have a question. So, hello.
Oh, hi.
So when I remember there was something with I believe Russell, something with the set of all sets.
Exactly.
Yeah. So is this the same like when you have to decide whether infinity is a number or something?
Yeah, very good question. This is exactly the same. The thing is, I was also cheating a bit when we said that for an infinite set, I just give it a name. The size of the set, I just give a name. What we usually would do, we would construct one set that is a very special set, and we say this infinite set is just the name of that infinity, right? So if you want to take infinities and group them into sets, you need to put sets into sets. And you end up with Russell's result. That's exactly the same. Yeah, but very good question.
Okay, we have time for other questions. Are there other people who would like to ask a question? I see one in the front here.
Thank you. This might be a bit of a blasé question, I'm not really sure. I've had many arguments with my brother about the whole infinite monkeys and the infinite typewriters thing, and the fact that mathematically it's not entirely a fact that they would type the entire works of Shakespeare, but it's probable. What does that mean for infinity?
But, could you repeat your question?
Well, so the whole story of if there's infinite amount of monkeys and or typewriters, that they would eventually type the entire works of Shakespeare.
Right.
And I don't know if that's a common story or not, but I've had many debates about this, and from an actual mathematical, factual level, it's probable but not definite. Is that accurate as a mathematician to say, and what does that mean for infinity?
So if you're working with probability, you should be very careful. For example, I could say the probability that once in I don't know how much time it takes, that once all these monkeys happen just to, so the story goes, you let monkeys just ram a bit on typewriters, and then just by random, you create the works of Shakespeare, okay, if you wait long enough. So the probability that if you wait long enough, eventually this will happen, this is still a non-zero probability, right? But the question is, how long does it take? It's difficult to say, but I think these are the kind of results where you can really say maybe it takes Aleph 0 time or 2 to the Aleph 0. So this is really where the different types of infinity come into play. Very practical question. Thanks.
Okay, guys, you can ask Michiel, he's gonna hang around if you have some more questions on infinity, because we still have the liars quiz coming up. But first I want to thank Michiel. That was a very conceptual explanation of infinity. I really enjoyed it. And as for all our speakers, we found you a comic, and we could actually find one about infinity, so we hope you enjoy it.
Thanks a lot.